My wife left me for a new life, only for me to find out she was cheating with her colleague at work. My name's Eric, and I'm 31 years old. I always thought I understood the meaning of change, but nothing prepared me for the day my life was torn apart. It was a chilly morning in early October when I woke to find that everything had shifted. The soft rustling of Sarah's breath beside me was gone. Instead, an empty space greeted me. For a moment I lay still, my eyes locked on the vacant side of the bed. It was as if the absence itself was mocking me, reminding me of a loss I wasn't ready to confront. The note was the first thing I saw when I turned over, lying neatly on Sarah's pillow. I picked it up with trembling hands, my heart racing in anticipation. It was as though I was bracing myself for the impact of a train, knowing it would hurt, but unable to move. Eric, I'm sorry, but I've made up my mind. I need a fresh start. I've moved to a new city, and I hope you'll understand. Please don't try to contact me. Sarah? The words felt like a punch to the gut. I read them over and over, as if by some miracle the message might change, but it didn't. The finality of the words hit me with a weight I could barely comprehend. How could Sarah, the woman I'd built a life with, just walk away like that? I stumbled out of bed, my legs unsteady as if the ground had shifted beneath me. I wandered through the empty rooms of our apartment, each corner echoing with memories of better times. The kitchen, once filled with laughter and shared meals, now seemed cold and unwelcoming. I stood there, staring at the coffee maker that had brewed countless cups for us, now just a silent witness to my solitude. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I ignored them. I couldn't bring myself to deal with the outside world just yet. The reality of Sarah's departure was too overwhelming. I sank into the couch, clutching the note as if it might provide some kind of explanation or solace. Hours passed, and I remained there, numb and lost. I replayed every moment in our relationship, trying to find clues, reasons, anything that might make sense of this sudden departure. Was there something I missed? Something I could have done differently? The day dragged on, and the emptiness in the apartment seemed to grow. I picked up the phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. I wanted to call Sarah, to hear her voice and ask her why, but I knew it was futile. The finality in her note was absolute, and I had to respect her decision, even if it shattered me. Evening fell, and the apartment grew darker, mirroring the heaviness in my heart. I sat in the dim light of the living room, surrounded by the remnants of our life together. Photos of us on vacation, our wedding pictures, and little trinkets we had collected over the years, now seemed like relics of a past I'd no longer reach. The emptiness was overwhelming. I tried to focus on the practical aspects of the situation, changing the locks, forwarding the mail, but my mind was too clouded with grief to think clearly. Everything felt like a cruel joke, a nightmare I couldn't wake from. The quiet of the apartment was deafening. I missed Sarah's presence, her voice, her laugh. The little things that once seemed so trivial now felt like a gaping void in my life. The sound of the shower running, the clatter of dishes, even the way she'd hum while cooking, all of it was gone, leaving behind an aching silence. I forced myself to eat something, though my appetite was non-existent. The food tasted bland and unappetizing, a stark reminder of how hollow everything felt. As I chewed mechanically, I tried to focus on practical matters, finding a therapist, talking to friends, but the enormity of the situation was too much to handle. Nightfall brought no comfort. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. What was I supposed to do now? How do you rebuild a life that's been so abruptly dismantled? I felt adrift, lost in a sea of unanswered questions and pain. I thought about the future. Plans Sarah and I had made, the dreams we had talked about. Now they seemed like a distant fantasy. The life I had envisioned was gone. I was left to navigate a path I hadn't prepared for. Eventually, exhaustion overtook me, and I drifted into a restless sleep. But even in my dreams, there was no escape from the reality of Sarah's departure. I woke up the next morning with a sinking feeling in my chest, the weight of loss pressing down on me. I didn't know what the future held. All I knew was that I had to face it alone. The journey ahead seemed daunting, filled with uncertainty and heartache. For now, I had to take it one day at a time, trying to find a way to come to terms with the new reality I had been thrust into. It had been 3 weeks since Sarah left, and every day felt like I was trudging through a thick fog, confusion, and heartache. I was trying to piece together a semblance of normalcy, navigating the labyrinth of my new reality with a sense of mechanical detachment. It was during this period of disorientation that Mike, a mutual friend, reached out. We hadn't spoken much since Sarah's departure. His call came unexpectedly, his voice carrying an edge of concern that instantly made my heart sink. We arranged to meet at a small cafe downtown, a place where we used to go on weekends. I remember sitting there, familiar smell of coffee and pastries mixing with an anxiety that I couldn't quite shake off. When Mike arrived, he looked haggard, as though he had been carrying a burden he couldn't share. We exchanged small talk, but I could sense that something was troubling him. After a few minutes of uncomfortable silence, he finally broke the news I wasn't prepared to hear. "Eric," he began, his voice hesitant, "I've been meaning to talk to you about something. It's about Sarah." I braced myself, my fingers gripping the edge of the table. "What about her?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Mike took a deep breath, looking around as if he feared someone might overhear. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but I think you deserve to know. Sarah's been seeing someone, from her new job." The words hit me like a slap across the face. I stared at Mike, unable to process what he was saying. "Seeing someone? What do you mean?" He hesitated before continuing. "She's been involved with a colleague. I didn't know the details until recently, but it's been going on for a while." My mind reeled. Pieces of my life, already shattered by Sarah's departure, now seemed to crumble further. "How do you know this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mike shifted uncomfortably in his seat. A friend of mine who works with Sarah mentioned it in passing. He didn't realize it was news to me. I've tried to get more information, but I didn't want to pry too much. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. Sarah hadn't just left for a fresh start. She had left for someone else. The very foundation of our relationship, built on years of trust and shared dreams, was now in question. How much of our time together had been a lie? I tried to steady my breathing, feeling the room spin around me. "Who is this person?" I asked, though I was almost afraid to hear the answer. Mike shook his head, looking apologetic. "I don't know the name, just that he's a colleague." "I'm sorry, Eric. I wish I had more details." I nodded numbly, my mind racing. The anger and betrayal swirled inside me, mixing with the grief I had already been struggling with. "Thank you for telling me," I said, though the words felt inadequate. As Mike left, I sat there, staring blankly at the half-empty coffee cup in front of me. The cafe's warmth seemed to mock me, a cruel contrast to the coldness that had taken over my heart. The future I had imagined with Sarah was now tainted by this revelation. Every memory, every shared moment, now seemed tainted with doubt. I walked home in a daze, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. The streets that once felt familiar now seemed alien, reflecting the chaos inside me. I replayed every conversation, every argument, every moment of affection we had shared. Could it all have been a facade? Once home, I tried to distract myself with chores, but nothing could fill the void that had opened up inside me. I kept thinking about Sarah's departure and how she had left without a trace. Had she been planning this all along? Was our relationship just a stepping stone for her? As evening approached, I found myself sinking into the couch, the familiar surroundings offering no comfort. I reached for the photo albums, flipping through pictures of happier times. Each smile, each embrace, now felt like a cruel joke. I felt betrayed, not just by Sarah, but by the very memories that had once brought me joy. I pulled out my phone, contemplating reaching out to mutual friends, trying to piece together more information. But I stopped myself, realizing that digging further might only deepen the wound. What I needed now was to find a way to cope, to begin the painful process of healing. Sleep came reluctantly that night. As I lay in bed, the weight of betrayal pressed down on me. The silence of the apartment was now filled with echoes of what had been lost. I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts a jumbled mess of anger, sorrow, and confusion. The next morning, I woke up feeling as if I had been in a long, restless battle. The sun was shining outside, but it offered no warmth. I felt like a ghost in my own life, moving through the motions while grappling with the overwhelming sense of betrayal. As the days passed, I struggled to find any semblance of normalcy. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I knew was tainted by this new revelation. The more I tried to move forward, the more I found myself pulled back into the pain of the past. The dreams I had once cherished were now nothing more than shattered illusions. Despite everything, I knew I had to find a way to deal with this. I needed to confront my feelings, understand the depth of the betrayal, and begin the arduous journey of healing. But for now, all I could do was try to navigate this new reality, one painful step at a time. The days following Mike's revelation were a blur of disjointed thoughts and restless nights. I was consumed by a gnawing sense of betrayal that seemed to seep into every corner of my life. It wasn't just Sarah's departure that plagued me anymore. It was the realization that our entire relationship might have been tainted by deception. To make sense of the chaos, I started to dig into the past, hoping to uncover the truth buried beneath layers of shared memories. It began one evening when I found myself alone in our old apartment, silence amplifying the weight of my thoughts. The empty rooms seemed to hold secrets, their quietude a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. I started by sifting through old photographs and letters, each item a fragment of a once-cherished history. The more I looked, the more I felt the pieces of our life together shifting into an unsettling new pattern. As I leafed through our photo albums, I came across a picture of Sarah and me at a beach vacation we had taken 2 years prior. We looked so happy, our smiles genuine and bright. But now that image felt tainted. I remembered how Sarah had insisted on taking that trip, her enthusiasm almost excessive. Was it possible she had been hiding something even then? Next, I came across a series of text messages on my old phone. They were from the time shortly before Sarah left. At first glance, they seemed innocuous, filled with the mundane details of daily life. But as I dug deeper, I found messages that hinted at a subtle shift in Sarah's behavior. She had started working late more frequently, mentioning vague projects and deadlines that seemed to stretch into the weekends. I recalled a particular conversation we had one night. Sarah had been evasive when I asked about her work. I had chalked it up to stress and overwork. Now, those evasions seemed more like coded messages, signals of an affair that had been brewing beneath the surface. The deeper I delved, the more I began to notice inconsistency. I remembered Sarah often canceling plans at the last minute, or suddenly appearing tired and irritable. She had been so focused on her work, and I had been so eager to support her that I overlooked the signs. I had convinced myself that she was just stressed, never considering that there might have been another reason. I started reviewing old emails between us, searching for clues. One particular email caught my eye. Sarah had sent it a few months before she left. In it, she had detailed plans for a project she was excited about, but the language seemed oddly detached, almost mechanical. It didn't match the excitement she had shown when discussing it with me in person. Had she been distancing herself even then? As I continued to sift through our past, I stumbled upon a voicemail from Sarah that had been left on my phone just before she left. I had never listened to it, too focused on the immediate shock of her departure. I hesitated before pressing play, my heart pounding as I braced myself for whatever it might reveal. "Hey, Eric." Sarah's voice came through the speaker, strained and unnatural. "I know things have been tense lately. I just wanted to let you know that I need some space. It's not you. It's just, I need to figure things out." The voicemail ended abruptly, leaving me with more questions than answers. The emotional distance in her voice, the vague explanations. It all seemed to align with the picture of a woman who had already made up her mind about the future. The more I uncovered, the more I questioned every moment we had shared. I replayed old arguments, conversations, and even mundane interactions, trying to piece together a timeline of when things had begun to unravel. I began to feel like a detective piecing together evidence. The more I found, the more I felt trapped in a never-ending cycle of doubt and pain. One evening, as I was going through Sarah's old journals, something I had never thought to read before, I found entries that described a growing dissatisfaction with her life and relationship. The writing was cryptic and filled with vague references to feeling stuck and longing for something more. There were mentions of feeling unfulfilled and dreaming of new beginnings. It was clear she had been contemplating change long before she actually left. The journal entries were a harsh reminder of the emotional distance that had been growing between us. They revealed a side of Sarah that I had never fully understood, a side that had been hidden beneath the surface of our daily life. The more I read, the more I realized how out of touch I had been with her feeling, and how that distance had allowed the affair to flourish unnoticed. The process of unearthing these truths was agonizing. Each revelation felt like another dagger to the heart, each memory a reminder of how blind I had been. The life we had built together, the dreams we had shared, now felt like a cruel illusion. By the end of the week, I had pieced together enough evidence to form a clear picture of Sarah's betrayal. The signs were all there, hidden in plain sight, but my love and trust had blinded me to them. The realization was crushing, leaving me to grapple with the enormity of what had happened. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, unable to fully comprehend the weight of the betrayal. The future I had envisioned with Sarah was gone, replaced by a painful new reality. I had to face the truth, however harsh it was, and find a way to move forward. As I lay in bed that night, the pain of the past few weeks felt almost unbearable. The once comforting presence of Sarah was now a distant memory, tainted by the knowledge of her deceit. I had to find a way to come to terms with this new reality. For now, all I could do was try to navigate the darkness, one step at a time. The day I decided to confront Sarah was marked by a turmoil of emotions that left me feeling both determined and terrified. I had spent days piecing together the fragments of our past, each revelation intensifying my sense of betrayal. My decision was fueled by a desperate need for closure, to hear the truth from her own lips, even though I knew it would only deepen my pain. I found Sarah's new address through a mutual acquaintance, who had mentioned it in passing. The place was a modest apartment, in a quiet neighborhood, a far cry from the home we once shared. As I stood outside the building, my heart raced with a mixture of anger, sadness, and apprehension. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself before knocking on her door. The moments leading up to her answering felt like an eternity. When the door finally opened, Sarah's face registered shock, quickly followed by a mask of guarded composure. She looked different, more polished, more distant. I could see the anxiety in her eyes, and it struck me how strange it was that someone who had once been so intimately connected to me now seemed like a stranger. "Eric," she said, her voice betraying a hint of unease. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the flood of emotions surging within me. "It's important." Sarah hesitated for a moment before stepping aside to let me in. The apartment was neat and impersonal, with minimalist decor that spoke of a new beginning. As I walked inside, I felt an odd sense of displacement, as if I were intruding on a part of her life that was now completely separate from mine. We sat down in the small living room, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. Sarah looked uncomfortable, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. I could tell she was bracing herself for what was to come. "I've been trying to understand why things ended the way they did," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "I've found out about your affair. I know you were seeing someone from your new job." Sarah's face paled, and she looked away, her fingers clenching tightly in her lap. For a moment, she said nothing, and the silence was deafening. I could see the guilt etched across her face, and it only made the pain more intense. "Eric, she started, but her voice faltered. "I didn't want to hurt you. I should have told you the truth." I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I forced myself to stay composed. "Though it's true. You were with someone else while we were still together. How long has this been going on?" Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes filling with tears. "It started before I left. I was unhappy, and things were falling apart between us. I made mistakes, and I didn't handle them well. I should have been honest with you, but I was scared and confused." Her words were like a knife twisting in my heart. I had suspected the affair had begun before our separation. Hearing it confirmed was a crushing blow. The betrayal felt like a heavy weight, making it hard to breathe. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Why did you leave without a word and then start a new life with someone else?" Sarah's tears spilled over, her voice breaking. I didn't know how to face you. I thought leaving was the only way to make things right, find some kind of resolution. But it was a mistake. I should have been honest, I see that now. The weight of her admission was almost unbearable. The pain of knowing that our entire relationship had been tainted by deceit was overwhelming. Every moment of love, every promise made, now felt like a lie. The future we had planned together was now just a painful memory. I loved you, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me. How do I reconcile the person I thought I knew with the person you turned out to be? Sarah's shoulders shook with sobs, and she looked at me with a mixture of regret and sorrow. I'm so sorry, Eric. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I was doing what was best for both of us, but I see now that I was wrong. I could see the anguish in her eyes, but it did little to alleviate the pain I felt. Trust that had once bound us was irreparably shattered. The closure I sought was tainted by the realization that there was no easy way to mend what had been broken. I stood up, feeling a sense of finality settle over me. I needed to hear the truth, and now I have. I can't change what's happened, and I can't go back to how things were. All I can do now is try to move forward. Sarah reached out, her voice pleading. Eric, please. I know I've hurt you deeply, and I'm sorry. I wish I could undo the past, but I can't. I just want you to find happiness. Her words were meant to comfort, but they only highlighted the chasm that now lay between us. I nodded, trying to hold back my tears. Goodbye, Sarah. As I left her apartment, the finality of the confrontation hit me with full force. Pain of betrayal felt sharper than ever, and the future seemed uncertain. The life I had envisioned with Sarah was gone, replaced by a painful reality I had to face alone. The drive home was a blur, my thoughts consumed by the emotional wreckage of our final exchange. The road stretched out before me, a symbol of the long journey I now faced. I knew that the road to healing would be long and difficult, but I had to begin it somehow. As I pulled into my driveway, I felt a profound sense of loss. The person I had once loved and trusted was now a painful memory. The finality of our confrontation left me with a deep, aching void that would take time to heal. For now, all I could do was face the days ahead, trying to find a way to rebuild and move forward from the wreckage of what had once been my life. The days following my confrontation with Sarah were a whirlwind of raw emotions and reflection. I felt like I was navigating through an emotional wasteland, each step a reminder of the pain I had endured. But as the weeks turned into months, I began to find small glimmers of hope amid the wreckage. I remember the first morning after our final meeting. I woke up with a heavy heart, feeling as though the weight of the world was pressing down on me. The apartment felt colder, emptier, as if Sarah's absence had left a void that couldn't be filled. I knew I had to start facing the reality of my situation, but the thought of moving forward seemed daunting. In the days that followed, I forced myself to establish a routine. I started going to the gym, a place where I could channel my frustration and sadness into physical exertion. It wasn't just about getting in shape. It was a way to regain some control over my life. The rhythm of running on the treadmill, the burn of lifting weights, it all became a metaphor for the struggle to overcome my own emotional turmoil. Work became a refuge. I threw myself into my job with a fervor that surprised even me. The distractions of meetings and deadlines provided a temporary escape from the relentless ache of my heart. As I immersed myself in projects and tasks, I found that my mind was temporarily freed from the constant loop of painful memories. Social interactions were more challenging. I avoided most of our mutual friends, the ones who had been present during the happier times of my life. Instead, I started seeking out new connections, people who didn't carry the baggage of my past with them. It was through these new friendships that I found unexpected solace. Conversations were often light and unburdened, and I began to appreciate the joy in simply being present in the moment. One of the most surprising sources of comfort came from an unexpected place: local art class. I had never considered myself particularly artistic, but a friend's invitation to join a painting workshop came a turning point. As I picked up a brush for the first time, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The act of creating something from nothing, of expressing emotions through color and form became a therapeutic outlet. Each brushstroke felt like a step towards healing, a way to channel my grief into something beautiful. It was during one of these art sessions that I met Lily, a kind and perceptive woman who seemed to understand the depths of my struggles without needing to pry. Our conversations were simple but profound, and her presence provided a much-needed sense of companionship. We would talk about art, life, and the future, and her insights helped me to see that there was hope beyond the pain. As the months went by, I began to slowly rebuild my life. I took up new hobbies, such as hiking and cooking, activities that allowed me to rediscover myself outside of the context of my relationship with Sarah. The mountains I climbed, the meals I cooked, each achievement, however small, felt like a victory over the despair that had once consumed me. I also started to focus on self-improvement. I sought therapy not just to process the pain, but to understand myself better and to learn how to set healthy boundaries. The sessions were often intense, but they provided me with valuable tools to navigate my emotions and rebuild my self-esteem. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that moving on wasn't about forgetting Sarah or erasing the past. It was about acknowledging the pain, accepting the reality of what happened, and finding a way to move forward with grace. The process of healing was neither linear nor easy, but each step forward, no matter how small, was a testament to my resilience. There were still days when the memories of Sarah would resurface, moments when the pain felt as raw as it had been in the beginning. But with time, those moments became less frequent, and their intensity diminished. I learned to embrace the memories without letting them define my present. They were a part of my past, but they didn't have to dictate my future. As I looked toward the future, I began to see possibilities that I hadn't envisioned before. The dreams I had once shared with Sarah had been shattered, but new dreams were taking shape. I began to think about the person I wanted to become and the life I wanted to build. It was an exciting and daunting prospect, but for the first time in a long while, felt like I was moving towards something positive. One evening, as I walked through a park near my apartment, I reflected on how far I had come. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, and the air was crisp and refreshing. It felt like a new beginning, a chance to start over and create a life that was uniquely my own. I stopped at a bench and took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. The journey had been long and painful, but it had also been transformative. I had learned to find strength in the face of adversity and to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. The road to moving on wasn't without its challenges, but with each passing day, I grew more confident in my ability to face them. I had rediscovered my passions, formed new connections, and learned to appreciate the beauty in the journey itself. As I sat on that bench, watching the sun set over the horizon, I felt a quiet optimism for the future. The pain of the past would always be a part of me, but it no longer held me captive. I was ready to embrace the next chapter of my life, with all its uncertainties and possibilities, and to move forward with hope in my heart. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. See you next time.